Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast as we discuss 2025 real estate investing predictions.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam, and today we'll be talking about 2025 real estate investing predictions. And I've invited back my friend and real estate investor, trainer, Brandon, the man Simmons. Welcome back to the podcast, Brandon. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Well, I thought today we just kind of have an open discussion about what 2025 looks like from a real estate investing standpoint and predictions. And what do you see coming at us?
Wow, I wish I had my crystal ball ready. I was an econ major in school, so one of the things I always look at is the data. So I'm trying to see what's going on with the data. We're right in the middle of January right now, Inauguration Day, MLK Day and stuff. So I think a lot of real estate investors, entrepreneurs are pretty hopeful with the new administration coming in. Anytime you have a pro-business, a president, I think it helps regardless of whatever, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. I think the key is just helping small businesses grow. So I think that's going to be helpful. I think also just paying attention what's going on with the interest rates.
Right.
Interest rates control so much because no one has the money to buy a house straight out. Most of the time, they usually are going to have some sort of financing and bank lending and stuff like that. So always watching what's going on with the interest rates. I think the other thing too is you're going to see the rise of AI and on so much stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes coming. It's really interesting from a political spectrum. Now I know there's hardcore Republicans that you could run a stone wall and they'll vote for them. There's hardcore Democrats. You could run that same stone wall, and if they had a Democrat, they'd vote for them. But the majority of Republicans and Democrats, they're more interested in how's things going to benefit my life. And I know people all over the spectrum, independents, Republicans, Democrats, libertarians, a Green Party. But you know what is different, I think, this time is I see people in all of those categories that are very hopeful about changes that are coming. And that's unusual when you have a transition, to a new administration. A lot of times there's one party that's happy, one that's sad, but I think we're seeing a lot of demographics that may not normally wish that a president's policies would do something, that they're getting behind this and they're saying, hey, things have got to change, especially if you're in the real estate industry.
Well, I think like in Europe, you see what, in politics over there's a lot of coalitions.
Right.
They have a lot of different parties, not just two-party system. But over here, we basically have a two-party system, even though there's independents and stuff like that and other parties. But really, the two parties control most of everything. But what you're seeing, I think, in this new administration, you see Democrats coming over. Right. And taking key positions.
Right.
And mainly what I'm thinking about is that meritocracy. It's basically all on merit. Who is the best person for the job? And try to find that person.
And I've been in business for nearly 40 years now. I don't know how I'm getting so old. But I've always hired the best person I could find for the job. And we've always succeeded. And it's been that way whether I was in sports, whether I was in business, whether we were in some kind of charitable work. You find the best person for the job and let them take the reins of it and run with it, and you'll get the best results. And I think we're seeing a lot of that right now.
I think it's Steve Jobs that talked about, he doesn't hire people to tell them what to do. He hires smart people so they can tell him what he needs to do.
Yeah, that's the Henry Ford model.
Okay.
You remember when he got history? He ended up in federal court, and they were trying to take Ford Motor Company from him. And their big charge is that he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to do it. He didn't have and he said, I got a box on my desk.
I remember that.
When I want to know something about engineering, I push this button, and in walks the best engineer money can buy. And that's really the way it should be. I mean, we should have the best person over Health and Human Services to try to get America healthy again.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to have the best people, in our military. We need to have the best people. Here's the thing a lot of people, miss, and this isn't a party issue. When America is strong and when America is great, the rest of the world is much safer.
Yeah.
It's much healthier. And there's much more hope because we are a generous country. And when we have the resources to do it, we can take that generosity around the world. Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful. I think 2025 I think there's a lot of positives to look forward to. I mean, I don't have the crystal ball. I think they're just on economics wise. I thought there was going to be a price turn down back in COVID.
Right.
And COVID did the opposite. We had these black swan events that happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really go with the normal historical rates and, the graphs.
In 2019, all the indicators were there at the end of 2019 that there was going to be some transition in real estate, and that there was going to be a little bit downward turn in price. Then COVID hit. And I thought, okay, here come the deals. We're going to see stuff go into foreclosure. We're going to be able to pick up. And just the absolute opposite happened.
Yeah, prices went through the roof.
Right.
Yeah, especially here in the Phoenix area. We had, what was it, like almost double.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, up through about May of 2022, it was a run-up. And, and then obviously Fed policy changed in 2022 pretty significantly. Mm-hmm. Over a short period of time, it was about 2,000% increase in interest rates. Right. Which just absolutely put the brakes on construction, the housing market, and a bunch of those things.
Yeah, I think you're going to see. There's already been some crackdown on some of the marketing, like a lot of the pay per lead companies. There's a lot of restrictions on them right now. TCPA compliance, so like cold calling and texting. There's some people that are still playing Wild West and texting everyone and don't think that they'll ever be sued. The reality is most of those people, there's people teaching people how to sue on TikTok on how to file a lawsuit when someone calls you or texts you that's not supposed to. And
and the FCC has built some pretty hefty damages into some of those companies. But I think you touched on interest rates. And obviously nobody knows where interest rates are going to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Fed cut rates by 0.5 point back in September, and mortgage interest rates fell. The real estate market, I don't know if you saw the statistics, for about a 2 to 3 week window there, the real estate statistics, at least in the area where I am, changed, and sales started to increase, showing started to increase, and then the Fed cut the rates again by 0.25 point, and the bond market said, no, and the bond markets went just the opposite, and the bond markets have been up ever since. And so bank-to-bank rates are down, but mortgage interest rates are way up, because the unemployment numbers are bad, the inflationary numbers are bad. We never got down to Powell's target rate of 2% before inflation started shooting back up again. So I guess the real question is, a prediction is do we think that the change in public policy right now will bring inflation back under control like it did in Trump's first term?
I'm hopeful. So we do stuff nationwide. We're nationwide right now. So it is market to market in some places. So, if you think about the Sun Belt, like California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, Florida, where most of the deals are happening for us right now. I think one of the things I'm paying attention to is, like, for example, in Florida, in some of the markets, especially near Tampa and stuff like that, the insurance is killing people.
Right.
People can't afford it, their payments, not because of the interest rates and the payment to the principal, but the taxes may be okay even, but then the insurance is so high. It's making it harder for them. In Texas, they have really high taxes, property taxes, because they have no state income tax.
Right.
So the taxes are already high. And then if you're in areas where they have had wind and hail damage, the insurance companies are bumping up those rates like crazy. In California, we have people that they have no insurance.
Right. Yeah, well, a lot of insurance companies just said, hey, public policy, state policy is so bad, we're pulling out of the states. We can't make the numbers work, and the risk is too high.
I mean, they're insuring $1 million houses in the Palisades fires, right? And those are all burnt to the ground. And so many people they didn't get their policies renewed.
Right.
They didn't have insurance on their homes,
Well, I heard, and it's unsubstantiated because I just heard this, but I heard BlackRock is going in trying to acquire a lot of those properties in California and take the properties and probably take the insurance claims with them. Hey, we'll buy the property and the insurance claim, and and we'll take this over as part of our investment portfolio.
And I think there's a lot to be said about there's business, and then there's going after people. There's certain laws in certain states for certain reasons, because there have been people that have been taken advantage of. And then there's business, and if you're a business person, you don't want to buy a property that that you can't rebuild on, or you can't do certain. So I understand both sides a lot of times, but I think what does worry me, we saw it here in Phoenix. The Crawford report is the one that ASRE, the Arizona Real Estate Investors Association, always has come out and stuff. And they talked about how it was 45% during the COVID time, half of the properties that were being bought and sold were by iBuyers and institutional buyers and stuff. Not just an LLC that flips a couple properties, but typically ones that have thousands and
the offer pad, those kind of entities. And I think that if we can kind of figure out the geographics, because I do this, in 2024 we did a morning real estate investor update for a year, just to kind of get in tune with the market, provide some information for our investors through our social media stuff. And one of the things that you find is that even in bad economies, even in bad real estate economies, there are some areas that do really well, and it's always like that. But I think we're going to see if we can get a handle on interest rates. Yeah, interest rates right now are running 6.5% to 7% on par across the nation. Numbers from Freddie Mac, bank rate, those type of things. But if we can see interest rates come down even to 5%, I think you're going to see a dynamic change, because not only will buyers be able to afford properties, but sellers will now go, well, I'll exchange a 3 or 3.5% mortgage for a 5, where I won't exchange a 3 to 3.5% for a 7.
Right.
And we'll get sellers back in the market who want to sell. There's a lot of pent up seller frustration, just like there is buyer frustration at this point.
Oh yeah. Tina Timor from the Crawford report, she was talking about if we can get interest rates that start with the 5, then you'll see the number of transactions go up in our market, because we're below what we should be on average from the number of transactions. It's slowed down. Right. But, if we get lower interest rates, you'd see a lot more movement, buyers and sellers. Right. I don't know what that would do with the prices. That's the economist mind in my head, is we haven't really had a true crash or a true, such a major downturn where prices are down. We're getting leads right now where people bought homes last year and they're offering to me, just take it over. Just take, give me $1,000 to move or nothing. Right. I don't care. Just take over my mortgage. And it doesn't make sense, because the payment, the PIT, the all-in payment, is much higher than what I can rent it for. What it'll produce, So, and that's scary when I see that, because that's I think we're inverted a little bit. Yeah. Well, typically what would drive prices down is a larger inventory. Yeah. So what we saw in 2020, 2021, 2022 is we saw low inventory numbers. In the area where we're at here in Phoenix, there was at one point 5,000 properties available when there normally would be 30,000 properties available. And this was duplicated. Vegas was like this. All the major metro centers, Atlanta, Miami, they had the same problem. And so what it did is it drove prices up because of scarcity of inventory. But if we get to a place where I think that sellers go, okay, I can move, and inventory comes up, and we see inventory come up and match buyer demand, I think we may see prices actually tip down a little bit. Won't be a lot. I don't think we're headed for any type of crash, but I think you could see prices come down a little bit as sellers are competing now to sell their homes, with interest rates coming down and having buyers who are viable Right.
You know,
it all goes back to like supply and demand. And one of the things that I always look at whenever I'm pricing different markets and what to offer on houses is seeing what are the days on market,
right.
How much supply do I have? If there's a ton of stuff for sale, and it's like going over 100 days on market, then that's probably an issue, right?
Right, absolutely.
So you're not going to offer top dollar. You're going to have to go a little bit lower because you're going to have to be cheaper than everyone else in that neighborhood in order to sell fast.
Yeah, and I think as this happens too, you're gonna see also more what we would call typically wholesale properties get back more to a realistic price. One of the big problems that I know that the hard money guys are having right now is that when they lend out money to somebody who's flipping a property, they're paying so much for a wholesale property. There's not enough at the end of the market, and when you have to hold it for 120 days to sell it, some of these flippers are going, hey, I give up. Here, have the property back.
Yeah, they'll just cite a deed reconveyance.
Yeah, let's give it back to you. And so some of the hard money guys have a little changed too because of where it's at. But I think that if you see interest rates come down a little bit, the hard money guys will pull back a little bit. But you're also going to see properties turn much quicker. You'll take 100 days on market. I think right now we're close to 90 days on market in our market, and you see that drop back down into the 40s. Right. What a huge difference. I mean, that's going to take a lot of relief pressure off the flippers, and it'll probably also bring some of the wholesale prices down.
And I think also, I think people look at investors as bad, like, oh, they're just totally like, you think about BlackRock going in after there's a big fire and stuff like that. The reality is if you have the right investors, the right mindset, flippers and stuff, they usually are improving these neighborhoods. They're improving the homes around there. And, people, there's arguments to be made about gentrification or people getting pushed out or can't afford things. And there's some truth to that in some of these markets. But, I mean, the reality is most of the time they're just trying to they're in a profit business. They're trying to make a profit. In order for them to make a profit, they have to put out, something that's out there that's going to be desirable
for somebody else. And like in any industry, I don't care if you're an AC company, a lawyer, there's good ones, there's sharks out there. And in our industry, I call them bottom feeders. They really don't care about the consumer. I know that one thing that, on our side, on our acquisition side of things, that we really focus on trying to make sure that we're providing value to sellers too. So we're going in as the buyer.
I love that.
A lot of times what we do, and I'm in a little bit of a unique situation because I own a construction company. We have a real estate brokerage, and then we wholesale and we flip. So when we go in, we can give a client a lot more options than maybe some of the investors can. But we'll go in and go, hey, look, your house is worth $500,000 after repaired. But it needs $125,000 worth of upgrades to get it there. So you've got some options. You can hire us. We'll come in. We'll do the upgrades, and you can put the house on the market for $500,000. Or you can sell us the property, for $125,000 less, and then we need, to be compensated for 2 closings we're going to have. We're going to have a closing with you when we buy it. We're going to have a closing when we sell it. So you got to cover our costs there. Right. And then we need to make a 10% profit on it. And so we just work the thing backwards. We show people and we give them options. We'll remodel it for you, let you get the high value for it.
That's great.
If you want to sell it this way it is right now and put it on the MLS, we'll do that too. Our brokerage will take the listing and put it on there. There'll be an investor out there potentially that'll buy it at a discount. Or we'll buy it and you'll have no risk, no liability, nobody walking through your house, especially with homes that are hoarder homes, where they just got trails through them. That sometimes becomes the best option. It's just like, mom and dad went into retirement home.
Right.
And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And I'm hoping, and I know the network that we're in, a lot of the people in there really have, they're in this not just to be bottom feeders, but they're really in this to make a difference in the communities, to help people, knowing that this may be the last money they ever have in their life as they go into retirement living, those kind of things. So,
and if you, I think you bring up a good point that the people that aren't the bottom feeders, those are the same ones you'll probably see in 10 years.
Right.
The ones that are bottom feeders, you probably will never see again.
Yeah, they come in and out of the industry.
It's a revolving door. And yes, they'll come in and make some money and they'll be out, but because they don't have the right reputation or the long-term insight, they're not going to be around long-term. I'm a big believer too. Like if you do it right and you get social media is huge. You're going to need to be on social media. You're going to need to get good reviews. You're going to need to probably have people go online. I don't think it's going to happen in 2025, but with that whole lawsuit with NAR and the whole thing with buyer's agents and getting commissions and advertising for that, you're going to see, I think, a shift going to people using more like investors to give them offers. You're going to see almost like Amazon style, like, what's my property worth? And then hit a button. And I mean, Zillow did a great job for a while because they were always ranked at the top.
Right.
And then all they had to do is add a button to receive an offer.
Right.
And then they went crazy. But then now they're out of the
business because they lost so much money.
They're a great lead generation business, though.
You know? Yeah, I started on the brokerage side of things. I started with Zillow before they went public. So it used to be you could buy all the zip codes in your area for a couple $100 a month, but all you got was a hyperlink. There was no pictures. There was no nothing. And that was back when I started with Zillow.
Wow.
And then when they went public, they've developed the network they have, but they're still one of the top vendors. So, for instance, if somebody's going to do a for sale by owner, you know where they're going to put their property. They're going to put it on Zillow because it really is the public MLS for sale by owner people.
There's actually an article that was, I can't remember where it was. I don't know if it was Wall Street Journal or something. They talked about Zillow being the new MLS. Like they're wondering if the MLS will even stick around because like there's going to be people are going to want access online, and Zillow is more transparent than the MLS. MLS, you have like the remarks for the agents and stuff, and you know how much they're making, and they don't want the public to know this. I think we're in an age where we want more transparency.
Yeah, I think the only thing that the Zillow would have to overcome probably to get there, and obviously it wouldn't happen this year, but would need to get there is the way the data is managed, because Zillow's data is not managed by any human interaction. It's all algorithm based. It's all AI based. And that's one thing about the MLS is you're getting actual human input updates. So the accuracy of the information on the MLS is much more accurate than it is on Zillow. I have people all the time call the brokerage and go, hey, we want to go see 123 Any Street. And the agent has to say, well, that house closed 6 months ago. It's not even for sale. So
yeah, it's not updated.
Yeah, it's not updated. So they've got to figure out that, I think, in order to get there. But right now, I mean, if you were going to try to, and here's the funny thing with FSBOs, 13% of all homes come on the market as FSBOs. 87% of those end up with a realtor anyways, because people don't realize that there's hundreds of steps in the selling process.
Right.
But if you are going to try to do a FSBO, Zillow would be the place to go. But it's also, here's another thing, it's also a great place for investors to market for properties.
Oh, yeah. We sell, just full transparency, probably 99% of our deals are sold on MLS now.
Right.
We used to use, all sorts of, build our own buyer's list. I got really good. And the buyer's list still work.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, they definitely still work. But if you're able to go on MLS, then it's a much broader, you can syndicate to multiple websites like Zillow and Redfin and all this stuff. I think that the key differentiator is going to be, it's always going to be in real estate, it's location, and price.
Right. And price.
If you have the price there, it'll pretty much sell. But what we've done a lot of data on is really understanding what markets, because we're transactional, right? We're not long-term buy and hold. We're trying to make, a wholesale fee or some sort of fee on a property in a short amount of time, not 5 years, 10 years. We're trying to do more transactional. So a lot of that is trying to figure out where more transactions are happening. So we market and we focus on markets that are always that are really top performing markets.
Yeah, and I think scalable, remote, investors kind of do that. They're looking, hey, is North Carolina good right now? Is Florida good right now? And okay, so here's a nationwide question for you.
Okay.
All right. So if you were talking to somebody who's just getting into real estate investing, thinking nationwide, what would be your recommendation with 2025 and the things that that you think that are coming to pass? Would you recommend jumping into wholesale, get into buy and hold, multifamily right now, fix and flip? What would be kind of your advice, I guess, as far as the best prediction? Which of those models you think is going to be the strongest in 2025?
Gosh, well, I think wholesaling works in an up market, down market, or flat market.
Right.
And I think wholesaling is a great place to start because it's a foundation. You learn how to market, you learn how to talk to sellers, you learn how to negotiate, you learn paperwork and contracts, you learn how to sell property. So that's a good foundation. The rest of it, the buy and hold, the fix and flip, it really kind of depends on what you have the taste for. Because some people are not handy and some people don't know how to manage other people
Right.
or crews. Like I'm sure with your fix and flips, I'm sure that every contractor was on budget and on time every single time, right?
Oh boy, don't I wish.
The reality is it doesn't. So you got to
Right.
be able to manage that and understand that that's just part of the business. You're probably not going to be on budget every time. So you got to plan for that. Or maybe your contractor may not show up. So you got to make sure you understand that. For rentals, you got to be able to, manage tenants. And if you're a really good communicator and you have a good way to find good tenants up front, that really saves you on that headaches down the road.
Right.
But there's tenants that can be really good at first and then turn bad later too.
Yeah, I've had them.
Yeah, me too.
They've lived in
Yeah.
my houses. Yeah.
I made the mistake of having my wife go clean one of our rentals right after someone moved out. No, she's not allowed to clean any more rentals again
there can
after
be-
that. Yeah.
Pretty interesting sometimes. Well, one of the things about wholesale, and I will say about this, is if you do wholesale correctly, you can do it with little or no risk.
Yeah.
Because you learn how to write the contract properly. You can do it with little or no investment as far as in the acquisition of the property. Now, in general, it may not be as much profit as on the flip side.
Correct.
But again, you don't have near the risk, you don't have near the cash investment, and so it can be a really good place to jump in.
I think it's also
started.
very scalable.
Yeah.
It can be very scalable. I think of it like almost like a evolution. Like there's an evolution.
Right.
Everyone kind of starts out like a bird dog. Like
Right,
even
yeah.
before you're even really wholesaling.
Wholesaling, yeah.
And then you become a wholesaler where you're paying for your own marketing and stuff. And then maybe you become a landlord or flip a couple properties.
Right.
And then really, I think down the road, it's like you become the lender, right?
Right.
You become
Yeah.
the guy who's loaning the money to everyone
Yeah,
else.
you're investing in other people's
banker.
project. You're the banker, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually really good, especially coming out of a market that's had such headwinds. Wholesale is not a bad, place to go. But like anything, whatever you are doing as an investor, you really need to get the proper coaching and training on it. You're gonna find some stuff on YouTube, but really, there's some top coaches out there. That you can hire that can teach you the wholesale process. There's some one-on-one coaches that'll help get you into the mindset of accountability and the things that you need to do. I think to be able to make 2025 work. I think there's a lot of opportunity coming our way.
I'm excited. Like I guess I'm always an eternal optimist,
Right.
And I can always see the silver lining and everything. And I think if most investors, that's what they understand. They understand cycles.
Right.
There's going to be cycles, and you just got to know how to pivot and adjust and
Right.
just ride the wave.
And just ride the wave. Yeah, well, I think this may be a good wave. It's all the time we have for this week's real estate podcast. I want to thank Brandon for being with us this week. He's added a lot of value, I think, to the podcast. And I want to thank you for taking time to join us today. I invite you to subscribe today and be part of our growing community. Be sure to leave us a review. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.